Hi, my name is Jasmine Nasser, and I'm a manager with BDO FMA, who in partnership with the Wallace Foundation helped design the strongnonprofit.org website to bring tools and resources for effective financial management to organizations throughout the nonprofit sector. The purpose of this video is to walk through the financial health analysis tool that is available for download on strongnonprofits.org. Here's a snapshot of the financial health analysis tool. In a little bit, we'll actually bring up the tool and walk you through how to use it. But first, as an overview, the goal of this tool is to provide an accessible, user-friendly way to make sense of your organization's financial data. We see this tool as being useful for staff of nonprofits who want to understand their organization's financial health, so that they can better articulate their nonprofit's financial story. This is an Excel-based tool that has a section for inputting financial data, which you see here now on the screen, and also a Summary and Outputs tab that shows a series of metrics in tables, charts, and graphs. These are snapshots of what the Summary tab looks like and what the output tabs look like. The tool attempts to answer 3 key questions related to nonprofit financial health. The first question we want to ask is about operating results. Is there a trend of operating surpluses or deficits? Every time we have a surplus, we add to our bank of reserves. Every time we end the year with a deficit, we erode those reserves and end up with a balance sheet that is less strong than when we started out. We also want to take a look at how the organization is investing its resources. And by this, we mean how our expenses are allocated between program, management in general, and fundraising. While we at BDO FMA don't see this as being a major indicator of financial health, this is a metric that gets a lot of attention in the sector. So while we don't think you need to necessarily conform to certain percentages, we do think that it's important that you know what your organization's percentages are, and if you're investing sufficiently in your organization's infrastructure over time. The second question is, how strong are your organization's reserves, and are they sufficiently liquid? The way we look at this at BDO FMA is using a metric called Liquid Unrestricted Net Assets, or LUNA for short. LUNA is the portion of unrestricted net assets that could be converted to cash relatively easily. So anything in your unrestricted net assets that is not tied up in fixed assets like a building or equipment, or hasn't been board designated for some other purpose. LUNA is essentially your organization's operating reserves, which are funds available for purposes such as supplying working capital, guarding against economic downturns, and pursuing new opportunities. In terms of what you want to have available for LUNA to be considered financially healthy, the benchmark most commonly cited is enough LUNA to cover somewhere between 3 and 6 months of operating expenses. And our tool is going to help you calculate this. Finally, the third question is about cash. Just looking purely at cash, we want to know how many months of operations can be covered by what's in the bank, and the general benchmark in the nonprofit sector here is also somewhere between 3 and 6 months of cash on hand. A key question about the tool is, what information do I need to fill it out? Our tool looks from the past to the future. So that means you're going to need to have your organization's IRS Form 990, 3 years worth, to give you a sense of what the past financial performance has been. And then you're also going to need to have your organization's current operating budget to give us a sense of what present and future projection is. The tool tracks a total of 4 years worth of financial data, 3 years worth of actuals, as well as the budget for the current year. Within the Form 990, the tool sources its data from Part 10, the balance sheet, and Part 9, the statement of expenses. Now let's go ahead and bring up the tool. Here you can see the tool in Excel. The Excel workbook has 4 different tabs. The Instructions and Benchmark tab, which we're looking at right now, a Data Inputs tab, where you input the data, a Summary tab that presents the financial metrics in a single table, and the Dashboard tab, which shows the financial metrics in graph form. On the Instruction tab, you'll find details on how to fill each cell, both where to actually fill in the data, and also some definitional information to help you out. If we scroll down, we can see here, towards the bottom, we have a section on benchmarks. So for every metric that the tool is calculating, we're providing an explanation of that metric, and where applicable, the most commonly cited benchmark that we see out there in the nonprofit sector for that particular metric. Next, we have our Data Inputs tab. You only want to enter data into highlighted cells. So that means any cell in yellow is where you want to go ahead and make your entries. Any cell that is shaded in gray is going to have a formula embedded within it, and you don't want to enter data there or change those formulas. One of the first things you can do when you fill this out is enter the name of your organization. So our fictitious sample organization that we're using for this demo is called Community Arts Organization Incorporated. And then you want to go ahead and enter the fiscal year of your organization's 990 from 3 years ago. In this example, we already filled in our fictitious information for the fiscal years 2019, 2020, and 2021. In order to fill out this tab, what we want to do is just start at the top and work our way down towards the bottom, filling in each cell in order to calculate the metrics. The first metric here is operating surplus or deficit. And you can see over here on the right, this sidebar is going to tell you where to look to find the information. So for this particular metric, we need to go to our Form 990 and find Part 10, line 27. For our net assets without donor restrictions, end of year, we'll find that information in Part 10, line 27, column B. And we'd find the net assets without donor restrictions beginning of year in Part 10, column A, line 27. When we populate those 2 data points, the tool automatically calculates the operating surplus or deficit for us. In the case of this organization, we see operating surpluses for the 3 years that we have data filled in. Moving to the next metric, we want to take a look at how resources are allocated across programs and supporting services. In our organization's Form 990, we can find that information in Part 9, line 25. Once we navigate to Part 9, line 25 of the 990, we would enter in the total expenses from column A, program expenses from column B, management and general expenses from column C, and fundraising expenses from column D. The tool will automatically calculate the percentage of each type of expense based on your organization's total expenses. Next, we're going to look at how liquid our reserves are. In order to calculate this Luna metric, the first data point that we need are our unrestricted net assets at the end of the year. These cells are gray because we already filled out this information above and the tool pulls that amount down for us. We also need to enter the net fixed assets at the end of the year, which we would find in Part 10, line 10C, column B. And we would also need to enter in if our organization has any secured mortgages at the end of the year. The tool shows us the Luna amount in dollars, which you can see here. And to put that in context, the tool divides this amount by your organization's average monthly expenses and shows you how many months of operations can be covered with liquid reserves. Here you can see in this particular example that the organization's Luna ranges from having enough reserves to cover about a month and a half's worth of operations to 4.7 months of operations. Scrolling down, we're going to look at cash and how many months of operations can be covered with available cash. For this metric, we need to enter in cash that is non-interest bearing and any savings and temporary cash investments. We can find these two data points in Part 10 of the Form 990 in lines 1 and 2. When we go ahead and enter that, the tool is going to show you the total cash on hand and automatically calculates how many months of cash on hand your organization has by dividing total cash by annual expenses. Once you've completed entry on the tool, all the metrics are here for you so that you can see them. But if you want to see a more consolidated summary of the metrics and some information about benchmarks, you can find that view on the Summary tab. And if you wanted to view these metrics visually and see how those trends look over time on a chart or graph, we can click to the Dashboard tab. You can see that we have our operating results at the top, surplus deficit, and our breakdown of functional expenses. In this example, we didn't populate the budget or the fourth year, so you don't get the full 4-year spread of the metrics here. But we would encourage you to do that when you populate your own tool. Scrolling down, you see that we have graphs that visualize the balance of our liquid unrestricted net assets, or Luna over time, and the months of Luna over time. Finally, we have our cash metrics, so cash on hand, and your total cash balance as of the end of each year. We hope this can be a useful tool for your organization. And remember that there are many other tools and resources available for strengthening nonprofit management here on strongnonprofits.org. Thank you for watching the demo of this tool.